So for those of you who are interested in how I've been putting all of these Star Citizen ships and whatnot into VRCHat, I'm going to be doing a quick, just kind of a walkthrough, little behind the scenes kind of thing of how I go through the process to do all of this. If you're not familiar with game development or not familiar with VRCHat in general, this is how things are done for porting Star Citizen assets over. From the, well, heavily modified CryEngine Lumberyard engine that Star Citizen uses to Unity. It's painful, but it works. Somewhat. The first thing is this nice program, StarFab. Love this. Hats off to people who made this. This would be so much harder if it wasn't for this. It just makes everything so much easier, so much more streamlined. And all you have to do, go in, select the ship you want, hit export, and drop it into Blender, and you get this. That's the easy part. Getting it in. Because this is a mess. Everything's here. And by that, I mean everything. All of the individual things, the little objects, the lights, whole lot of stuff you don't usually need to see in, like when I'm doing it. There's a lot of things I don't need. So I have to strip most of this down to basically nothing. So we end up with something along these lines, where it's just the interior, pretty basic, no exterior, because you're not going to be seeing the exterior if you're not going to be exiting the ship. And in this case, obviously removing the vents, removing the back storage area, because frankly, I didn't feel like it was necessary. And this is nice, but there's still a huge mess, and it's painful to work with. So I go through, clean it up, and we end up with this, which is a much cleaner version. Every room is segmented off into its own individual part, which makes things so much easier. It's very neat and organized, and now it's, at this point, now it's ready for export from Blender into Unity. And then we end up with this model, which is great, but you fall right through. So then I have to go back into Blender and basically trace out the entire thing by hand. All of the interior. And manually go through and create a very low detail model of every single piece that I want you to be able to interact with, touch, walk around on. Trying to make it as detailed as it needs to be, but not so detailed that it's, well, overcomplicated. Because, well, if I didn't do this, you would just, like I said, just kind of fall right through. And this is invisible. You can't see this, but this is the part that your character actually bumps into walls and touches and everything, and this is the hardest part. I hate this. This is painful. I hate doing this, but it's the most necessary part, because bad things would happen if I didn't do it myself. But once we're in, then we have the fun part, which is the lighting. I get to go through, I get to place lights around, I get to, just hit a button and wait for 10 minutes. Or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depends on if I'm running other programs on my computer. And then see if the lighting looks good. Is it too bright? Is it too dim? There's dark areas, there's areas that are too bright. And do that for days, trying to figure out exactly what the right brightness is on everything. And after that, we get to the much easier part, which is taking all of these materials and lining out the textures and placing everything in, because, let's be honest, there's a lot of detail that goes into Star Citizen, and converting that over to a different game engine is not the easiest, but necessary if you want it to look decent. And once that's done, then we get to the most fun part, in my opinion. Well, one of the most. I might have said there are multiple most fun parts, but this is the next part comes the audio, the sound, which is pretty easy and usually goes the fastest. But finding all the sound effects. Like the cockpit has its own sound effect, the neck sounds different, the foyer here has a different sound effect for like the ambient noises and little creaks and stuff. They go around and picking those out and everything and placing them around, and just making it sound like it does in the game is You wouldn't think it, but that's honestly what gives these ships the most atmosphere. Is if the sound is missing or the sound is like incorrect, it just doesn't feel the same. Really, really, actually, kind of incredible how important the sounds are from the game to make things actually feel real. And, well, after that just comes compressing textures and tweaking things, fixing bugs, fixing holes in the collision, because sometimes you just kind of fall through the ground and I'm like, whoops, forgot that part. And then comes the upload and releasing it, and being able to walk around in VR and at that point, it's the greatest feeling in the world. Just seeing this, even if it doesn't look anywhere close to what it does in game, nowhere near as good, it's so satisfying. Even if this does take a couple weeks, even if it's just sometimes just pounding my head against a wall, trying to do something that I just don't want to, it ends up being worth it because it's just so immersive. Even if it's not Star Citizen, it's still the same ship. Still the same visuals. And it's beautiful. As Star Citizen always is. It's one thing this game does, is look good. But I don't know if I missed anything. I don't think I did. But, I mean, that's just kind of the general process that it goes through, and it's fun. Albeit very, very tedious at times, but quite fun. Obviously, I'm glossing over a lot of the more fine details, but we don't need to go into those. I mean, if you want me to go into those, let me know in the comments. I can go into more detail if anybody's interested, but for those who are just casually interested in how this is done, there you go. I hope you enjoyed.